Hello everyone. In today's session, we will discuss about the topic 3, which is excise duty. And in Vietnam, the excise duty comes under SCT that we discussed in the previous session. So SCT stands for Special Consumption Tax. So we will discuss about special consumption tax, but of course we focus more on the excise duty. All right. Topic 3, special consumption tax. All right, which is excise tax or excise duty. All right. So let me write down here excise duty. Right. Okay. For this excise duty, of course, we will discuss more about Vietnam, some rules and regulations, which items include goods and services we impose excise tax, and which kinds of items are exempt from excise tax. In addition, we will discuss about the taxable price, the price, the amount on which we have to pay excise tax or excise duty. And we also discuss about the tax credit, which means some kinds of benefits you can get it if you are paying excise tax in Vietnam. And which types of companies are, which types of businesses are taking can take a benefits, or which kinds of business they have to pay excise tax. That we will also discuss about this. In addition, we also discuss about the tax rates. Because there is a list of the different goods and services, which is around 16 goods and services. On these 16 goods and services, we have different types of rates. So I will also give you that kind of rates. All right. I will also send you the documents which are used to find the different tax rates in Vietnam. Besides all these kind of things, we also going to discuss about the administration system of excise tax or custom, mainly custom, because government websites, they do not provide any kinds of information about excise. So excise items also comes under the customs, all right, in Vietnam. So what is the administration system of that kind of customs in Vietnam? And of course, which departments are involved in that kind of tax collections in Vietnam. Besides that, we will also discuss about some kinds of some different kinds of formulas, but I think I may not go much more in detail, because your tutor, Mr. Tham, he will give you more detailed information about tax estimation and tax calculations, right? So let's start with the introduction. So in introduction, I'm going to give you some basic informations, like what is the meaning of excise duty, what is the meaning of excise tax, what is the difference between excise and the customs, and how excise duty is different from VAT or different from sale tax. I will also give you ideas. So please don't be confused excise and VAT. All right, it is different because you're going to have a separate session over VAT. All right, so this excise do not comes under VAT. All right, excise comes under special consumption tax, and sometime we call it SST, special sale tax. So special sale tax or special consumption tax, which covers the excise duty. All right, so let's start with the introduction. The first one is introduction. So first of all, the main purpose of the introduction is that in this introduction, you have to keep in mind those things, right? Few things you have to remember, right? So if you understand these kind of things, it will be much more easier to understand the old sessions, right? So let's start with the definition. Definition of excise. Excise tax is a duty that we have to pay at the time of manufacturing instead of selling. All right. So excise tax is a tax which imposes for manufacturing instead selling. All right. That's also differentiate this excise from the VAT. All right. So when you are manufacturing the things, then whatever tax you are paying, that's called the excise tax. All right. Okay. Now, what is the difference between excise and customs? Because most of the time, when we discuss or when we hear about excise, at the same time we use the word customs. So excise and customs. All right. So what is the difference between excise and the customs? Right. So remember, excise is different from customs. Right? It's different from customs. How it's different from custom? Because excise tax we normally pay on the item which came into existence inland, right? Within the country, came into existence within the country, right? And customs, which came into existence after crossing the border, right? So in simple language, within the country, you manufacture any kinds of things, you're gonna pay excise, all right? But you are purchasing some kinds of goods or material from foreign country, you bring it to your country, and then you start involving in manufacturing and so on. Then that's so in this situation you have to pay a custom, right? So so custom is the goods that came into existence at the border, all right, or after crossing the border, right? Came into existence at the border. All right. So, which means you bring it goods from foreign country. All right. So in this situation, you're gonna pay customs because you are crossing borders. So you have to pay a customs. All right. And that's mainly the customs. All right. And excise came into existence inland, right, within the country. Okay, so for excise came into existence within the country. Right. Within the country. So that means inland. Right. So that's mainly the difference between excise and the customs. Right. Next thing we're going to discuss is how excise tax is different from excise duty. All right. Technically, there is a difference between excise tax and excise duty. All right. But in Vietnam, instead of saying tax duty, we use excise tax. All right. But at international level, some other excise tax or some other kinds of import-export taxes in foreign country, they differentiate excise tax from excise duty. All right. So here I'm gonna try to tell you the difference between excise tax and excise duty just for your information. All right. But again, in this lecture, which when we talk about the Vietnam excise tax, we use the word excise tax, but don't try to find that this excise tax is a different from excise duty, because in Vietnam they use the word excise tax than excise duty. All right. Okay. So excise tax implements on particular person or organization. All right. So excise tax and excise duty. All right. Excise tax normally imposed on a person, group of person, or organizations. Right. Or organizations. Right. Person, group of person, or organizations. All right. Excise tax. While excise duty normally imposed on manufacturing goods. All right. It's for goods. Manufacturing goods, right? So that's mainly the difference between excise tax and excise duty. But in Vietnam, the excise tax word interchangeably with excise duty. So no matter we talk about excise tax or excise duty, is the same idea, which is excise duty. All right. So it's not the case when I'm saying that excise tax, which literally mean that I'm talking about excise tax. Of course not. It's excise duty. Right. So when I'm talking about excise duty, but it's not literally mean that excise duty, it could be excise tax. So no matter I'm using the word excise tax or excise duty, so you do not be confused that I'm talking about individual or I'm talking about the manufacturing goods. Right. But again, when I'm talking about the particular thing, I will discuss about it. All right. So, but this information, very general ideas, right, which try to explain the difference. But however, for this lecture, these 2 points are more important than this third points, right? Okay. Next is which I also explained you in the beginning, but again I repeat. Next thing that you have to remember is the difference between excise and VAT, right? Excise tax, and VAT, value added tax, right? So make sure you don't think that it's the same thing, right? Of course, it's not the same thing, right? Why it's not the same? Because excise is the per unit tax, all right? Excise is the per unit tax, which is mainly fixed in most of the cases, right? In addition, excise imposed on the narrow range of products, all right, in Vietnam, all right? So first thing, excise mainly paid on the per units, right, and which is fixed in most of the cases. And second thing, the range of products on which excise impose, it's very narrow, it's very limited, right? So it's like, as I said in the beginning of session, it was like around 16 product and services on which excise duty imposed, right? Okay. So excise is a tax which paid by per units, right? Quantity of the items. On the quantity of items, we impose excise, right? So I would say that excise imposed on the per unit, right, or volume. Right. So mainly excise impose or excise estimation or levy behalf of the quantity of the items. Quantity of items. On the other hand, VAT, value-added tax, that you're going to study in your upcoming sessions. Value-added tax impose or value-added tax estimation on behalf of the value of the product or the goods, right? Which based on the value of the particular items. Of course, involve the quantity too. All right. So, but here, when we are estimating in value-added tax, when we are estimating the tax, we will look at what is the total, worth of the goods. All right, the economic value of that particular goods. All right, but of course, what does it mean, economic value? It has a particular criteria that we will, of course, discuss in the next session. And here, on the other hand, excise imposed on the particular quantity of the item. All right. So that's the first difference, which is here. So down here, which is first difference, and the second difference between excise and VAT is excise cover a narrow range of items. Narrow range of items compared to VAT. So that the list on the VAT items, of course, is much more wider than the excise. So the quick example for the items on which we're gonna pay excise, it's excise duty. It's alcohol, right? It also involves the beer. It's also involves any kinds of items or goods in which tobacco is used, right? That items could be tobacco is used to smoke, tobacco is used to sniff, tobacco used to do some other kinds of things. Any kinds of products, item or goods on which tobacco is involved, we also have to pay excise on that. So in the next learning outcome, we will discuss about the list of the goods and of course the services as well, right? So these are the things that we have to keep in mind when we study about excise. All right. So let's move on to our second learning outcome, which is excise duty imposition in Vietnam. So second one is excise tax or duty in Vietnam. Right. Okay. According to Vietnam Ministry of Finance, this excise tax comes under special consumption tax or special sale tax, right? As per Ministry of Finance, so as per Ministry of Finance, of course, Vietnam, excise comes under the special consumption tax or special sales tax. As I said that sometimes we call it special consumption tax, sometimes we call it special sales tax, which is different from VAT, right? Okay, so what are the items on which we have to pay excise? All right, and keep in your mind that this excise could be imposed on the items that we are importing from foreign country. All right, so you can also call it customs. No any issues. All right, so just keep in your mind. If we are importing any kinds of goods and services from foreign country, we have to pay customs. All right, so we use the word customs. So if I'm using the word customs, so which means I am talking about the goods which is crossing the border. So which means it's coming from foreign country. If I'm using the word excise, it means that products is manufactured within the nation. All right. Okay. Or if I'm talking about any kinds of foreign products, so which means I'm talking about the customs. Right. But when we talk about the collections of the tax, so Ministry of Finance, they cover all the kinds of excise under the customs. All right. So probably customs for domestics. All right. So which means excise, and of course custom for international, which means custom. All right. So okay, next one is tax collection agencies, or what is the administrative system to collect a tax, excise tax in Vietnam, tax or excise tax or customs. All right. So administrative system of excise tax collection. It's nice. So this is the. So the idea is that how we gonna collect. I mean. Tax or customs or excise tax in Vietnam. So first of all, we have a Ministry of Finance, right? So we have Ministry of Finance. That Ministry of Finance covers or control over the Department of Vietnam Customs, because of course the Ministry of Finance involved in different kinds of controlling or kind of administrative activities. So among all, there is a Department of Vietnam Customs. We have Department of Vietnam Customs, and this Department of Vietnam Customs control two different I would say that branches or two different kinds of units. So the first one is subordinates and administrative units. Subordinates and administrative units, right? And the second one is the local custom departments. So we have two different kinds of departments we have. All right. So subordinates and administrative units cover the three different kinds of departments or units. The first one is a legal department. All right, that department is much more involved in, of course, checking all the kinds of legal formalities, documentations, any kinds of license to import the items from the foreign countries, right? And second one is a custom department. And of course, that's kind of department involved in any kinds of tax estimations. On the basis of the tax estimation, we impose that particular amount for the particular types of person or the entities, right? And the third one is a analysis and classification center. So that's kind of center mainly classify the different kinds of imposition of taxes as per the particular items or particular goods and the services, right? Okay. So these are basically the department which is involved in subordinates and administrative units. And on the local customs, we have a provincial and sub-provincial or city departments. Provincial or cities department. So that department is a particular province or cities. Depends how big is that, how developed that particular area is that. All right. So for example, Dong Nai province, they have their one departments. However, in Ho Chi Minh City, there could be another department. All right. So it depends. Is it province or the cities? All right. And each province and the city, we have multiple branches. Right. So we call it custom branches, which comes under the provincial or cities department. So that is the custom branches. So these are the branches which comes under the local custom departments, right? So this is the ideas about the administrative system in Vietnam, right? So now we move on to the third point, which is the taxable object. All right. So in these taxable objects, we have goods on which excise tax imposed, and the services on which of course tax imposed too. So this is number 3. That's 1, 2, and 3. So this taxable object divided into 2 parts we have, which involve, of course, goods and services. Right? So let's start with the goods. In these goods, the first thing is cigarettes. Cigarettes, cigars. Second one is alcohol or beers. Alcohol or liquor, all right, or beers. Third one is any kinds of vehicles which is under 24-seater, all right? So vehicles under 24 seaters. This could be a minivan or small van or any kind of things. Next is any kinds of vehicles which has 2 wheels or 3 wheels, and the engine capacity of that vehicle is 125 cc, right? So 2 or 3 wheelers under 125 cc, all right? So this is basically the strength of that particular engine. Next one is aircraft or yacht. Aircraft and yacht, right? Next one is gasoline items, which of course belongs to the gasoline. Air conditioning. Aircon, actually there is a kind of kind of the power of that particular aircon that I guess is 19 or maybe 9 ton or something. But that's, you don't have to worry about it. So just keep in your mind aircon. Besides aircon, we also have another item, we call it votive item, right? So before votive items, we have playing cards, playing cards, and next is the votive items. Now, what does it mean, votive items? Votive items is any kinds of items which comes under the religious things, any kinds of sacred items, right? So any kinds of sacred. Any kinds of sacred items, of course, which belongs to the particular religious things, right? Right. So I guess it could be statues of. It depends, that statue used in that in particular kind of religion, right? So any kinds of religious items, right? Sacred items, that price could be price quite sensitive, right? So that price could be increase or probably much high price, or it comes under the, maybe depends upon the items, but maybe it comes as an antique. But again, besides antique, it's not just an antiques, but it's also connected with the religious or sacred kind of things, right? So these kinds of items, of course, goods on which we have to pay excise. Now we move on to the services. So these are the goods. Now we have some services. In that services involved dance hall, right? It's involved casinos. It's also involved betting, right? Lottery and betting things, right? It's involved massage parlor, massage parlors, or it's also involved a spa, massage parlor, spa, also involve karaoke bar or karaoke bar. That's also part of these services. In addition, we also have other kinds of business in which such kinds of services could be involved. That business involve golf, right? So golf business. Golf business. So these are the items that are part of the services on which we levied the excise duty, right? So now we move on to number 4, which is the non-taxable object on the items, goods on which we don't have to pay excise tax. So this is 3, and now we move on to 4. 4. So non-taxable object. Non-taxable items or non-taxable objects. So in this non-taxable objects, first of all involved is ambulance, right? So first thing is an ambulance on which we don't have to pay tax. Second one is a prisoner van or prison's van. Third one is any kinds of vehicles that's involved in there is a recreations of that vehicles for entertainment purpose or sports purpose, and that vehicles are not registered in circular or any kinds of transportation department, and that vehicles cannot run on the road, all right? So recreation of vehicles for the entertainment purpose, or any kinds of sports purpose, entertainment or sports purpose, and that's vehicle cannot run on the road, right? So we can't use it for run or move on the road. So transportation is not the purpose of that vehicles, all right? That vehicle purpose is just to entertain or maybe some kinds of sporting activities, all right? So these are the things that we have to keep in mind when we are involved when we discuss about the items which are non-taxable for excise. Now move on to number 5, which is taxpayer who pay tax in Vietnam. Taxpayer, of course, related to excise duty. taxpayers. So taxpayer involved business organizations, business and non-business organization. Second one is a political organization or parties, right? In this political organization parties, besides that, it could be people armed forced units, people armed force units, foreign investors, or foreign invested parties, and any kinds of individual or household. Alright, so these are mainly the parties, very commonly parties in Vietnam which are liable to pay excise duty, alright, excise tax, sorry, because these are the people or organization who involve in any kinds of these kinds of excise items, the items that we have discussed earlier, right? So these kind of items, right? These kind of items, they involve in this kind of goods and services, right? So next is the taxable price, all right? So which means how we estimate the taxable amounts for excise, related to excise or the customs, right? Next, which is number 6, is taxable price. Okay. Okay, so it's involve the according to Vietnam law, they do not really define whether we are estimating the excise or we are estimating the import tax. So, but they provide the criteria for the import tax instead of the excise. All right. So here I will discuss about the imported goods. All right, and that could be implemented at these sales. Or I think I should leave it. I think I should leave these points here in order to discuss with your tutor whether we should involve the import tax rates here, or we should focus only on excise here, because as per the government website, there is no any particular information available regarding estimation of criteria to estimate the taxable price related to excise. So these points we will discuss in our Zoom session. All right, so next Zoom session. So in this Zoom session, we will discuss about these kinds of issues. So now we move on to the next one is tax credits. So who can get the benefits related to excise, right? And I mean, how we estimate the tax credit or tax benefits. So tax credit. So in tax credits, for example, if I am liable to pay special consumption tax or special sales tax, so I can claim the credit which belongs to the raw material. All right, only raw material, not besides raw material, which could be labor, overheads, or other kinds of non-operating activities. All right. So for particular goods which are liable for special sale tax, right? So goods which are liable for special sale tax, manufacturer can claim, manufacturers can claim the raw material. Right. So which means only raw material. So not some other kinds of items so total cost of raw material. This could be a transportation cost such as carriage, inward cost, or loading, unloading, any other kinds of cost that belongs to the raw material that could be claimed as per the law, right? And if you are not producing product domestically, you are not manufacturing product domestically, if you are buying product from the foreign country at selling stage, you can claim that particular amounts from the government, right? So if you are importing the particular goods from the foreign country, right? But of course, the amounts must be involved to the raw material. Okay. So remember, no matter whatever is the items we are importing or we are producing within the Vietnam, when we are estimating special consumption tax, in this special consumption tax, environmental protection tax is not involved. Like as in the previous session, I described the different categories related to the items that we may buy from the foreign country and how we pay the tax. In the different categories, I explained about import tax, I explained about VAT, I explained about special consumption tax, and I also explained about PT, Environmental Protection Act. So remember, if your items comes under the particular categories which is not environmental friendly, could be a plastic bags, or could be a plastic bottles, or could be any kinds of petroleum related products, which is carbons or petroleum related products which is harmful for the environment. In that situation, when you are estimating excise tax, you are excluding Environmental Protection Act, so which environmental protection tax. So this environmental protection tax you have to pay separately. So of course there is a criteria to estimating environmental protection tax that we will discuss in upcoming sessions. All right. So a few things this thing you have to remember. Okay, so now we move on to the important part, which is the tax rates. What is the tax rates? How many percent tax we have to pay, right? I think I should write here, so I don't need to make a list for the. So. Right down here. Tax rates. So I'll say that. Look at point 3. Right. Look at point 3. So we go to point 3 because we don't need to make a list for the objects, so it's already here. So but I'm going to writing tax rates here, so you can find out. You can find through this. Okay, so let's start with the cigars and cigarettes. Cigars and cigarettes, there is a 75%. Yep. So 75% tax on the cigars and cigarettes, right? So this is the tax rates for the related to SST, right? Second one is the alcohols and the beer. Alcohols and the beer is 65%. 65%. And 35%. So two rates apply for alcohol. So why two rates? Because we know that alcohol, basically how strong is alcohol, we measure on the behalf of the degree of that particular alcohol. If it's like, I have not much knowledge about that degree, but I can give you quick ideas that if that degree is above 20, if degree is above 20, right? If degree is above 20, is 20 degree or above, so it means strong, I guess, right? If it's 20 degree, then you will pay 65% tax. If it's so 20 degree above, right? And if it's under 20 degree, then you will pay 30% tax. Right? So beers, I guess beers is under 20 degrees because beer is less stronger than the wine or whiskeys, or I don't know, some other kinds of alcohols, right? Next, yeah. So I'm not sure. Maybe beer or maybe not. All right. So it depends because there is a degree. I guess degree is mentioned in that wine bottles or beer bottles or box or the seller. Probably they have a much more knowledge about what is the degree of that particular types of wine or alcohol items. Right. Um, Next one is the vehicles under 24 seater. So that tax rates is between for vehicles is 10 to 150%. Yes, is too high, right? 10 to 150% taxes. Depends how big is. I guess if it's reached to the maximum limits, which is 24 seater, then you have to pay a high tax, all right, which is 150. Next one is two or three wheelers under 125 cc. So that's kind of wheeler. So tax rate is 20%. All right. Tax rate is 20%. Right. Next is the airplanes, aircrafts, and yachts, which comes in, of course, same categories. So that's why the tax rate is 30% for both items. 30%. Next is gasolines, which is petrol. It will be 30% as well. Next is aircon. So the tax rates is between 7% to, no, it's not. Gasoline is not 30%. So gasoline is a 5, 7 to 10. 7 to 10. Gasoline is 7% to 10%. Right, 7% to 10%. Okay. Next is the aircon. So aircon is 10%, also 10%. Playing cards, playing cards is a 40%. Any kinds of votive items, it's 70%. These are the tax rates applied on the items. So I'll write down here. Tax rates. Taxes, so these are tax rates. Now we move on to the services. For any kinds of dance hall, so the tax rates is 40%. For casinos, it's a 35%. For betting, it's a 30%. For any kinds of massage parlors, spa, and karaoke bar, it's also 30%. Right? So these are the tax rates apply to the items which involve goods and different kinds of services. Okay. So that's all about the tax rates. And please keep in your mind, these tax rates are for 2019, right? So this is tax rates for 2019. So in upcoming session of budget, so we're gonna have latest rates over the different items, right, for 2020, right? So these rates for 2019. All right, 2019. So that's about the taxable rates. Now we move on to the next part. In this part, I would like to focus on the few things. Okay, so as I said that for your learning outcome 2 and here taxable price. I have some information's taxable price for domestic goods. All right. So so you can use that way to estimating the taxable price for the items only which are manufactured within the country. All right. Regarding exported, of course, we have some additional information about exported as well. I mean from foreign country, import from foreign country. So which I may not discuss about. So there is a criteria for different kinds of items. For example, for golf business, for casinos, for betting business, for dance halls, there is a different criteria to estimating the different kind of rates. So I think I should discuss in the next Zoom session. I think that's much more convenient. But anyway, I will give you very quick ideas over these kinds of taxable price. Right? So that which I discuss later in the Zoom session. So we have a formula for it. So here is a tax price, right? So tax price divided into two categories. Tax price for the goods which are produced domestically. The goods which are produced domestically, or the goods which are imported. Right? If the goods which are produced domestically, so we have a formula for excise. We have a formula for excise. Excise price or excise liable price. Liable price could be V exclusive selling price, right? VAT, exclusive selling price. Exclusive selling price, right? Minus environmental protection tax, if we have. If any kinds of environmental protection tax we have, divided by 1 plus excise tax rate. Alright, so excise tax rates are the same. That's, you got it from here. Alright, so these tax rates depends what particular item is it. Alright, and using that items we can find out the VAT. So of course we need to know the VAT minus any exclusive, any kinds of selling price items. Now the question is, how can we identify VAT exclusive selling price, right? Exclusive sales price basically set at the establishment of that particular goods, at the establishments of particular items. All right. So for example, any kinds of let's say we have a raw material. Whoever is selling the raw material, any kinds of agent or any kinds of person, the agents that sell at the price which is set by the producer for commission only. So any kinds of additional commissions over the selling price, that commissions could be considered as a exclusive selling price. All right. Another way to estimate the exclusive selling price is that make sure that selling price may not be lower than 10% of particular selling price. If it's less than particular selling price, that may not be considered for price estimation. Okay, so I think that's all about the excise liable price, and these points we will also discuss again in our Zoom session. So next Wednesday Zoom session, and then we will explore more what is the criteria and how does it implement, which factors really affects when we are estimating the exclusive selling price. All right. And of course there is a list of the items which is not really harmful for the environment. Then of course you don't have to worry about Environmental Protection Acts. Of course, if the items, like as I gave example before, which is harmful for the environment, you have to consider when you are estimating the excise, and plus the tax rate, which is divided by tax rates, which is also given in the list of the different taxes, right? So these are the things that we should know at the time of estimation of excise. So I would like to explore one more thing that's maybe important for the tax purpose. No, we don't have much information about it. Okay, I think that's all for this session. All right. So I'll give you a quick review over this session. In this session, we discuss about the first thing we discuss about some diagrams, some introductory informations like what is the definition, the difference between excise and customs, the difference between tax and and the duties, and how excise duty is different from value-added tax, right? And then later on, we look some other things such as who imposed this excise duty or special consumption or special sale tax in Vietnam, of course, which is by Ministry of Finance. And if it's imposed by Ministry of Finance, what is the administrative structure for that kind of tax collection? So that administrative structures, of course, it's involved the subordinate. So two different things. First one is the subordinates, admin units, and the second one is local custom departments. And of course, these subordinates and local custom departments. So if we talk about the subordinates and administrative units, it's involved in three different kinds of department. The first one is a legal department. Second one is a custom department. The third one is the analysis and the classification centers. But of course, all these kind of departments, they have a specific kind of responsibilities in that particular activity, such as the legal department is involved in any kinds of licensing, any kinds of documentations. Custom departments is involved in the tax estimation, tax impositions. The right tax rates has been imposed by the particular parties or individuals. And the third one is the tax classification center. The different type of centers has been classified, and of course depends upon the type of product that we are importing, and on the basis of the different classification of the particular items, there is a tax impositions. All right. Second one is the local department. All right, local custom department, which is this could be is depends upon the provincial or depends upon the cities. All the kind of provinces and the cities have custom branches. So these kind of custom branches control over all the kinds of excise things, right? And next things we discuss is the taxable objects, so different goods and different kinds of services. Then we talked about some kinds of non-taxable objects. Non-taxable objects is any kinds of products or services on which we don't have to pay tax. It's involve ambulance, any kinds of prisoner vans, any kinds of recreations of the vehicles for entertainment and supporting activities, and make sure that that kind of vehicle is not registered or that kind of vehicles cannot be moved on the road. All right, so these kinds of items we don't have to pay excise. Then later, which is number 6, we talk about a taxable price. Of course, there is a formula for taxable price for excise, which is a VAT, exclusive selling price. Subtract Environmental Protection Act if we have, and divided by 1 plus tax rate, which is of course here, right? Then tax credits, we can get some kind of tax credit or some kinds of tax benefits on the items. So these kind of tax benefits involve goods which is liable for SST, special sales tax, so manufacturers of the particular products can claim the raw material, or claim for the raw material, right? So that's all about your topic 3, right? So we stop here. So in our next session, we will discuss about of course we discuss these issues, like whatever issues we have related to the taxable price, right? So we stop here. So I'll see you in next Zoom session, right? Okay, thank you.